On May 23, 1993, wax, or the discovery of television among the bees, entered the internet, projected by a cable into a wall. Inside that internet, there are no movies there. And so wax, waiting until the last frame enters the wall, then begins the first movie on the internet, to continue forever, for that is how the first movie on the internet begins, at the first frame after the last frame. A true story, and this is that movie, and in reverse. And so, we begin.
As you are aware, the internet is a DVD on a coffee cup. I could show you how that happens, how the handle of the coffee cup becomes the hole in the center of the DVD. How the interior of the coffee cup disappears into the surface of a flat disc as I spin. I am the first movie on the internet. I am inside a DVD on a coffee cup. I could show you how that happens. How the movie appears between two frames, between the front and the back of the DVD disc. I am the first frame after the last frame. I am the movie in the DVD on the coffee cup. I am wax, or the discovery of television among the bees. I am 999 years, 364 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 48 seconds long. And then it was dark, until dawn.
That didn't discourage me. That didn't discourage me. That didn't discourage me. That didn't discourage me.
Closer on the diagonal bees. They run in and out of the black and white archive, which stretches an indefinite number of units left to right. Each slatted frame has an indefinite length. Having seen that the cave comb is empty, this is probably that, or that is this. Might simply be a picture from a time when there were many pictures, so many that some could even be stored for later seeing. Re-emergence of the ancient continuing stream of green microscopy, rippling itself in constant turbulent flow. Yet another clock-like motion in a cave, which is the hive of images, not bees. The edge between frames in an artificial hive, home of the unknowing bees. They run through the crack between wooden buildings, on business that is extremely local. They don't know that they are on TV. Jacob still stares, dissolving through the singing dance of the blank white hexagons, which continue to rotate around an empty center. He is patient and willing to be their guest. More moments are passing for him than for us. The lost hexagonal moments pass to the distance, where they will stay forever, at least unless we go to visit them again. Little lights tied to the finger of a puppeteer. Or are those the feet of a joking bee, sitting on the bridge of Jacob's nose, confusing him with a fake cross-eyed force base? The lip wax curtain of the cave hive wall falls towards us. Perspective has been turned up, and the ceiling is much closer than it appears. Perhaps these parallel lines converge at infinity, nearby. Closer to the wall, we see how stone and wax are the same, though they represent different boiling points in absolute terms. In each fold are more folds. The air acts as blood, cleansing these folds, and carrying the bees, or at least tendrils of Jacob's breath, from slough to slough. Distant constructions, hanging in clusters. Peace and time have built this city of wonders. Cars fly through the air.
I continued to walk through the cave, a tourist in the land of the dead. I continued to walk through the cave, a tourist in the land of the dead. I continued to walk through the cave, a tourist in the land of the dead. I continued to walk through the cave, a tourist in the land of the dead.
Jacob's hand precedes him into the frame. Then, onward, digits. Through the gravity well to cave destiny, where, at the end of it all, there is the end of gravity. Float up, fly in the air. That's the ancient rumor propagated by beowners and religious souls. He pauses to see something that he sees again. It is in front of him and us, but not immediately apparent. The end of the world is near, and the stars are close. Christmas was last week. Easter is next week. Armistice Day has been moved.
Each corner held a new amazement. Each corner held a new amazement. Each corner held a new amazement. Each corner held a new amazement.
Jacob placidly looking up at the ceiling of the cave. Pasting together the separate angles of his eyes won't equal the total of his blinking stare. An extromissive laser pair, melting the wax walls of the cave, sculpting images of the future there, or are those twisted I-beams inwards focused, carving script on his wax cerebellum?
They had created a world where the dead could live. They had created a world where the dead could live. They had created a world where the dead could live. They had created a world where the dead could live.
There is a rotating ceiling there, a single stamped sheet with rotating spikes. Each is a pit of negative thinking, or maybe just the existence of negative things. The dark wind propels its spinning form. The edges of the landscape have no thickness, and yet it lives, full and flat, in the third dimension. A bowl-like valley, detached from the rest of its earth. A concert hall agora for the democracy of the dead, lost among the black hills of the broken other world.
Each soul could have a square of land and time. Each soul could have a square of land and time. Each soul could have a square of land and time. Each soul could have a square of land and time.
The Hollywood Bowl is replaced by a small mountain chain made of glittering facets. There are no trees, indeed fewer details than on many sand grains on any beach. There are also no gray bees. So what kind of being lives in such a strangely shaped hungry comb can only be guessed. Speed in from the left of a small patch of picture carrying Jacob. A standing trapeze artist waiting for the catch, not quite aware that the evening is over. A patch appearing from the right, moves off frame left. Jacob is hidden by the drip deposit of 100 years of ceiling leak. Stone remnants of bad housekeeping in the cave. Jacob looking up into the dark, all around him. He has a slight crimp in his neck from expectation, an emotion that will not immediately be rewarded.
Both qualities were fluid. The products of powerful thought machines that worked behind the scenes here, powered by the raw energy that the bees emitted. Qualities were fluid. The products of powerful thought machines that worked behind the scenes here, powered by the raw energy that the bees emitted. Qualities were fluid. The products of powerful thought machines that worked behind the scenes here, powered by the raw energy that the bees emitted. Qualities were fluid. The products of powerful thought machines that worked behind the scenes here, powered by the raw energy that the bees emitted.
Walking through fluid space, with the wave-like wake of his passage preceding him. Surface tension keeps him from falling through. The rock solidity of the cave floor and somewhat leaky ceiling do help. Like a bee on a waterbed at night, he walks without sure-footedness until startled. He is not sure he can fly. Some strange stone or hive space. 8,000 acres of mushrooms, tended by a herd of zebras. What are those shapes between the limestone icicles? Rump of an okapi? Monkey cats? What forest burned down and pushed them underground, here into the secret salt cave of the elephants, where now they have learned to eat new types of fruit and, for survival's sake, live for the bees as the aphids do for the ants? Well, it's a job, this mushroom tending, says the zebra to its mate. End of the day. Back at the stone shack the bee company gave them both to live in, set at the poorer edge of the great cave. A cylinder-like oscillator, or strange mechanical soul of the dead, packed like oil souls underground. The dead welcome mechanical release and chemical processing that eventually turns them into gas station gas, exploding and propelling the engine of this story. Jacob is part of a larger scheme to find the proper technology to harness the residue power of the dead, their faint breath, and ability to push things over, for practical purposes. Linear fast-moving extrusions from this cylinder, like lines on a TV, or an etheric form of mechanical TV, various varieties of soul move back and forth past our eyes. TV should be like this, but never will be. Thin lines interfere with one another at speeds too fast to be understood, though not too fast to be perceived. Reddish bees on a comb, with banded lines showing something happening in another space. Coding without meaning intrudes, portentously emblematic of some message or at least background language. Backlit cells mixed with striped forms of missing tongue. Pottery patterns of a burned civilization, on my mother's father's side, have become the newspaper ornament of a more waste pervasive and perverse conqueror culture. The adjectives in the previous sentence of course can be argued with. Very fast shuffling of bees on a frame. The queen is there. She lays eggs again and again, though in this slipped case, most likely not even once. That is the power of repetition.
It was a mechanism of astonishing complexity. It was a mechanism of astonishing complexity. It was a mechanism of astonishing complexity. A mechanism of astonishing complexity.
A red hologram of a bee. The detail can't be seen from this distance, but all the streets of the world's great cities are recorded on the back of this one little image object. A sunrise. The past and the future collide, leaving a few vague images behind. On a rotating impermanent coin, a bee chases a small fly across the sunny lip of a hive. In the background, multiple versions of a looking Jacob sequence without order. Wax circa 1986. A strange spiked shape rotates in space, in front of a clean white comb interrupted by long lines which must be compressed pieces of the language of Cain. Planets abound between the frames, especially when the frame lines slip into the picture itself. Multiple small hexagons make a crystal flower in the darkness. Later, when the crystal flowers bloom, this sad line shape will be forgotten. Beats of light travel from the top of the frame, like bubbles heading to a cartoon balloon showing what one of the undrawn characters is thinking. The unwords are off-screen. By a similar process, back at the Society for Supernormal Photography, the dead tried to speak to Ella, and the dead wife of Zoltan Abbasid was therefore able to bring up the subject of the car and that country road.
All this tired me. I slept in a dark corner, like a bee. All this tired me. I slept in a dark corner, like a bee. This tired me. I slept in a dark corner, like a bee. This tired me. I slept in a dark corner, like a bee.
Wide-sprung singing dance of the rotating hexagon groups. They follow simple paths and can't quite tell you the time. A sliver of Jacob, reclining against the cave wall. The light is meant to reveal or scan. Jacob shivers, remembering for only a split second his only experience in the human scanner, back at the human hospital, where they looked all through him for nodes or clumps of history, and found only liquids and healthy softs, transparent in the radiogrammatic moonlight of the computer image. The singing cells appear over him, as if they were part of him, and the night leaves, which we didn't even detect arrive, but then sleep cycles are deceived by cave light, which also eventually makes you blind and patient. Jacob is revealed twice more, and then a multitude of green fragments appear in an orderly flock around a vacant center, slowly collecting and rotating into a Mobius shape. A self-organizing non-dimensional soul space made of lost jigsaw puzzles and the confetti from underground explosions. Jacob, slightly wakened by the light, tilts his head up. Not too fast, in order not to scare away whatever was watching him while he slept.
When the underground sun rose, I could feel my destiny pressing in on me. When the underground sun rose, I could feel my destiny pressing in on me. When the underground sun rose, I could feel my destiny pressing in on me. When the underground sun rose, I could feel my destiny pressing in on me.
His head motions up, and light streams from his eyes and through the glasses, or just a reflection. The murderous gleams of his projective glasses echo the space where the glassy beat rotates inside him, showing things outside his brain on their mirrored fronts. Jacob walks along a bluish curtain of rock or cone, vanishing in a wipe behind a dark barrier. There are layers of walls in the underworld, but no coherent system of rooms. He dissolves white walking. His feet keep to the path a million visitors have walked. You never know when a gun-toting park ranger might appear. Just one of the floating familiars that sometimes take to following you in public places.
It was time for me to find out who I was going to kill. It was time for me to find out who I was going to kill. It was time for me to find out who I was going to kill. It was time for me to find out who I was going to kill.
He appears on the other side of the barrier, slowly turning and stopping, to perhaps aim his weapon eyes across the cave. Look out, darkness.
Ran forwards and backwards. Ran forwards and backwards. Time ran forwards and backwards. Time ran forwards and backwards.
An expanding zero within a cone fabric made of cave wall approaches us. The landscape twirls within the cone until it opens up like the travel panorama at the Dead Travel Agency. Then this engulfing piece of void cloth tilts and reveals fast-moving imprints traveling across its surface. The empty stacked walls slide to Jacob across the people mover, ever forwards, backwards. A second Jacob, body motion tricked by false cameras sliding backwards. The carpet rolls up, apparently having gathered Jacob and his feet, which now walk on the inside of it, along the edge of the zero. Then it stretches out to shrink the singular point at its end into nothing much at all.
I emerged in a room as bright as noon, covered with magnificent honeycomb. I emerged in a room as bright as noon, covered with magnificent honeycomb. I emerged in a room as bright as noon, covered with magnificent honeycomb. I emerged in a room as bright as noon, covered with magnificent honeycomb.
A large comb-covered room. Jacob emerges from a hole in the wall. His shadow covers the picture wall as he passes. The shadow also stays in step. The wall doesn't move. The shot is soon over. His knee appears. Jacob is in fragments, lost in one of those moments before the truth of transubstantiation through cave life have been revealed to him. Q. How often do you meet your future self on the street with a sign of recognition? Less than often, and it certainly doesn't happen for him here now. Just more confusion, that's the answer. The rock comb, long sheets of slow and ancient wax. There is a secret room beyond. In there is enough food to live for several weeks, plus a large collection of airplane blankets. The Bee Atlantis. Not a proper name, but rather a place which might have been, and might still be, in the mind of some bee ad agency selling taglines to a death cruise operator.
Hidden behind those walls, the bees were hard at work, sculpting enormous wax figurines. Feminine forms, in which they intended to enter our world. Hidden behind those walls, the bees were hard at work, sculpting enormous wax figurines. Feminine forms, in which they intended to enter our world. Hidden behind those walls, the bees were hard at work, sculpting enormous wax figurines. Feminine forms, in which they intended to enter our world. Hidden behind those walls, the bees were hard at work, sculpting enormous wax figurines. Feminine forms, in which they intended to enter our world.
With a zither's sound, the wall of the cave swings round. The Ferris wheel goes round, and the devil runs by on the ground. We're way up top, staring down at the fair, without even looking up at us. Jacob standing against the dark, looking up at the wall and what has been revealed to his X-ray eyes. Eyes with cardboard pupils, sending soul light through rough pinhole apertures rimmed with torn paper fiber. Garnet Poots wax figurines, simple molded wax shaped which are placed in wire mesh hives for the bees to finish. Poot said that he said his family made bees in Georgia. Now, he molds the figures, places them in home hives, lets the bees have enough food to build comb and begin to fill it with stored energy, then shuts their door to the world long enough to make thee eat it all, cleaning the comb and preparing the sculpture for his removal. Side view of the identical figures. Strange solid, processed shapes of bee material. Ears made of wax. Hairless. Eyes only in outline. But that outline is now wiggling into the solid head, carving out a three-dimensional orb of an eye, and likewise the solid wax digests itself to leave behind a luminous gullet that will ravenously, magically never create waste. Two bees at work chewing a wax figure. The small breast and large hats of funeral followers, or county officials assigned to monitor baptisms and marriages. How does the county keep its paramilitary in modern gear? With birth, marriage, death taxes. Thus it really pays to stay on top of things, keep the revenue stream running. We get close the shoulder of one of the figures, a woman who might be Jacob to be. The bees are gently walking and working over the line of her face and hat, each bee asking the other if this is a good surface for cell making.
They promised me one of these bodies after my death. To earn it, I would have to enter their world. Promised me one of these bodies after my death. To earn it, I would have to enter their world. Promised me one of these bodies after my death. earn it, I would have to enter their world. Promised me one of these bodies after my death. To earn it, I would have to enter their world.
Spine lump on the back of a figure. The worm of reason crawling up a bony back. The bees massage the suffering shoulders of this growing body. The figures are distinctly feminine and almost fully grown. The future life of Jacob is only minutes away. Hive mind, wax body, lost world, missing person. A bare, white comb, with no stored honey. Some bees ponder these rooms. The castle has been stripped of furniture, and the court has moved to another state.
I drove through a tunnel and arrived at a city. I drove through a tunnel and arrived at a city. I drove through a tunnel and arrived at a city. I drove through a tunnel and arrived at a city.
Travel through strange floating hollow lumps to an empty darkness beyond. An ectoplasm fixed as frozen space. You might expect that there would be a target at the other end, given the general nature of this film, but, believe me, this is a truly peaceful realm at night. A grid of flat hexagons suspended above us. We pass through its plane and continue into the darkness. Eyes at the ends of your fingers might see this when you pass that hand through your hair. However, this is a formally different reality than might be supposed to exist close to your scalp.
In the city, there was a building. In the building, there was a room. In the city, there was a building. In the building, there was a room. In the city, there was a building. In the building, there was a room. In the city, there was a building. In the building, there was a room.
A partial grid of flat, open, and empty hexagons. Each, the inaccurate 2D projection of an icosahedron, waits for the void to pass so that it can catch a breath and get on with the business of nothing. We pass into one, which is in the center of this visible structure, though there are hints it may go on, though not forever. That would be too long.
On the wall of the room was a vibrating bookshelf that held a crystalline book. The wall of the room was a vibrating bookshelf that held a crystalline book. The wall of the room was a vibrating bookshelf that held a crystalline book. The wall of the room was a vibrating bookshelf that held a crystalline book.
Inside the center dark, we can see a solid single hexagon, like the cover of a tomb. We travel towards a white spot at its center, where there is a small hexagonal hole. The tomb is uncovered. The dead rise in reverse. Inside the hollow center is a single vibrating hex ring. It whistles with the thrill of the void, as if the dark were a trumpet that it could blow until the end of the shot. The advancing hexagonal projection of the B television, which keeps distance, tilts back to show us its true pentagonal form. Once I met the man who painted all the small pictures that are just above eye level in the corridors of the Capitol building, who told me about the Scottish rites and other sorts of rather pedantic mysteries that surround our Masonic forefathers, one of whom he obviously considered himself. I cannot reveal more about the conversation because it stopped there.
In the book was the story of the bees, told in secret words, shaped from the bodies of the dead. The book was the story of the bees, told in secret words, shaped from the bodies of the dead. The book was the story of the bees, told in secret words, shaped from the bodies of the dead. The book was the story of the bees, told in secret words, shaped from the bodies of the dead.
Dissolve through this white dark to see a mirrored BTV reflecting the void and the word dance of the dead, who are passing behind it. Their linear passage becomes a pentacirculation on the surface of the TV. These working words carry meaning from the end of the story backwards towards the beginning, where others besides you are waiting for it. Between parallel pairs of counter-rotating solid flat hex city grids, a passage of thick and flattened dead words, many of which are familiar, and might almost constitute a font, if they weren't actually just family members. In the hive, all bees are half-sisters of each other. Source: oral communication from someone who claimed to know.
The story told me that here in the Garden of Eden cave, vengeance was being planned for the dead. The story told me that here in the Garden of Eden cave, vengeance was being planned for the dead. The story told me that here in the Garden of Eden cave, vengeance was being planned for the dead. The story told me that here in the Garden of Eden cave, Vengeance was being planned for the dead.
The name of a lost cave in upstate New York. Its discovery announced by the inventor of How Caverns after he had sold that latter complex to 19th century investors. A true anagram, and part of the universal poetry machine that the Dancing Dead constitute. Another lost spring wound marvel that in its time never ran down. We see the word cave fly in to join its family, who usually spell the Garden of Eden when they aren't spelling something else. Words that are things made of other things which live and move and were never present in the place they refer to. Altogether this is a mystery for which there is no resolution, though it is quite easy to let it rest and get on with the rest of creation. The Garden of Eden sign is meant to lure you off the highway, out of your car, and down close to the earth, where the growing things moan and ask you for money. The sign rotates with a familiar squeak heard on the radio miles before, the audible equivalent of an itch in your ear, which in turn is linked to some trouble deeper inside your head. The rotation reminds me of the Satellite Inn, where once I spent several uneventful nights.